Welcome to the Line Life podcast. I'm Jeff Postlewaite, Senior Editor of T&D World, and today we're bringing you more stories of the grit, courage, and inspirational teamwork that it takes to be a line worker.
Hello and welcome to the Line Life podcast. My name is Amy Fishbach, Field Editor for T&D World magazine and host of the Line Life podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Before we dive into our audio story for today, I invite you to become part of our Line Life podcast community by going to linelife.podbean.com and clicking follow in the top right. You can also follow the Line Life podcast in your favorite podcasting app. If you have a suggestion for a guest for a future episode or a story that you'd like to see narrated for In Case You Missed It series, please email me at uoeditor@endeavorb2b.com. I look forward to hearing from you. For this week's audio story in our In Case You Missed It series, we're featuring the article from our May 2025 print issue titled Entergy Shares Strategies for Storm Response. The utility describes 4 tactics for better restoration from the 2024 hurricane season. This article was written by Bill Perry, contributing writer, and it's narrated by me, Amy Fishbach. Before the first hurricane of the season even makes landfall, electric utilities strengthen their systems, practice response strategies, and create a proactive approach to restoration. In a typical year, about 7 hurricanes, including 3 major ones, hit the Atlantic and Gulf of Mexico. Last year, the Atlantic hurricane season encompassed 11 hurricanes, including 3 major ones, some of which have directly impacted Entergy's service territory. Over the last 25 years, the Edison Electric Institute, or EEI, has given New Orleans headquartered Entergy 48 emergency response awards for the way it tackles storm outage recovery and assistance. Entergy's approach may help other utilities across North America consider different priorities for restoration or double down on the things they are already pursuing. With the uptick in storm activity, Entergy and its contractors were busier than ever restoring power for customers and neighboring power companies. To mitigate the increased strength and frequency of severe weather hitting its service territory, Entergy, among other things, continues building a more resilient grid. Resilience is not only the strength of the system, but how quickly we recover and restore power to our customers following severe weather, said Dakin Dubrock, Vice President of Incident Response for Entergy, looking back on the 2024 hurricanes. Among last year's challenges for Entergy were Hurricanes Beryl and Francine. Beryl made landfall on July 8, 2024 as a Category 1 hurricane near Matagorda, Texas, with maximum sustained winds of 85 miles per hour and 97 mile per hour gusts. Beryl also notched the record for the most tornadoes produced by a single storm in the region. Within 5 days, we restored power to approximately 90% of customers who could safely receive power, Dubrock said. Francine, a Category 2 storm, made landfall in Terrebonne Parish, Louisiana on September 11, 2024, with sustained winds of about 100 miles per hour. After landfall, the center of the storm moved northward into Mississippi. Service was disrupted for about 316,000 customers, but within 4 days, Entergy restored 100% of its customers who could safely receive power. According to Dubrock, the speed with which restoration happened during Beryl and Francine is partly attributable to resilience investments like constructing raised substations, undergrounding feeders where possible, and hardening distribution poles. As Francine cut across the eastern portion of Louisiana, 437 poles Entergy recently installed as part of its Energy Future Ready Resilience Strategy sustained 0 damage. In the wake of Francine, customers on Grand Isle, Louisiana, which extends like a finger into the Gulf of Mexico, saw little to no power outages, which is attributed to upgrades made after Hurricane Ida in 2021, Dubrock says. During Beryl, which affected the Texas Boulevard Peninsula, Entergy reported no damage to new poles installed in this location as part of its resiliency effort. A new substation on the peninsula and another under construction are elevated, and neither sustained damage from wind nor storm surge, Dubrock said. These measures are part of Entergy's effort to increase the wind standard at which the utility builds new equipment across its transmission and distribution system. Changes in the utility contractor relationship. Many utility contractors and their trade allies have evolved from chasing storm work to operating in a way that mirrors storm-ready utilities like Entergy, said Mike Zapone, Chief Operating Officer at Tempest Energy, which delivers storm response services for utilities across the United States and Canada. Zapone said contractors must continually develop their skills and know-how while assessing qualifications via resources like ICYMI. Utility professionals say contractors who stand out are, in part, the ones embracing technology and at the forefront of innovation. An example of that could be developing a cloud-based health, safety, and environmental orientation tool or a mobile app to reduce the time to confirm the availability of storm restoration resources. Establishing objectives from the outset to consistently communicate with the public, regulators, and local, state, and federal officials helps everyone know the extent of the damage and when they can expect power to be restored, Zapone said. Making contract crews feel safe and familiar with processes requires technology, usually in multiple languages, whether they are working on overhead line distribution, vegetation management, or other disciplines, Zapone said. Contractors have to think like the utilities they work for, said Zapone, who retired from Eversource before joining Tempest Energy. If you're going to work and drive tens of thousands of hours and miles on a system without incident, a contractor has to leverage technology to get in lockstep with the utility, outlining 4 tactics for better restoration. When asked what utilities planning for major events in other parts of North America can learn from the 2024 hurricane season, Dubrack and Zapone offered the following. Number 1, make safety job 1. Entergy's Emergency Action Plan protects workers, contractors, and the public by preparing for and preventing the risks with down power lines and restoration. The plan includes provisions for only qualified personnel providing oversight to crews, heat stress mitigation, and limiting the number of workers any lead can effectively and efficiently oversee. Tempest Energy, for example, worked 81,000 hours for Entergy without a safety or environmental incident in 2023, which led to winning the utility's 2024 Storm Response Award. Zapone said part of why that happened was anticipating what the incident response team needed while balancing a sense of urgency with safety. Any third parties used during restoration efforts are trained in our expectations and requirements before beginning work, Dubrack said. We are monitoring and managing workers' potential fatigue, which includes restrictions on how many hours they work each day. The payoff. 4-barrel Entergy's native and contract crews worked about 341,000 hours with no serious injuries. During Francine, crews worked more than 550,000 hours without a single severe injury. Number 2, prepare, prevent, and predict. In advance of Francine, Entergy's teams patrolled more than 1,200 miles, trimmed overhanging tree limbs at about 1,400 locations, and removed 340 trees that threatened electrical infrastructure, Dubrack said. The work helped reduce outages from vegetation contacting electrical infrastructure and mitigated the potential for trees and limbs falling and blocking access to assets. Entergy also pre-staged crews and equipment as close as it safely could in areas the utility expected the hurricane would impact, which expedited restoration. In addition, Entergy continuously improves its processes to have the right resources in place at the right time for restoration. Hurricanes Francine and Beryl gave Entergy the opportunity to launch an enhanced resource and logistics planning tool. With the tool, the utility collaborated simultaneously across its transmission, distribution, supply chain, and incident response groups to prepare prior to each storm's landfall. Entergy also tapped technology called Storm Depart, shorthand for the damage estimation, prediction, and resource tool. Storm Depart uses national hurricane forecast data and energy asset data to provide predictions for distribution and transmission assets, which helps determine resources, Dubrack says. Number 3, apply new technologies for assessment. Entergy also optimized how it assessed damage to its system by using a new application dubbed the Damage Assessment Collection Tool, or DACT. With the tool, assessors in the field catalog things like broken poles and damaged transformers in real time and digitally transfer the information to the restoration planning team. Assessors access online maps in DACT to relay the exact location of damage. Both native and non-native crews use DACT as part of restoration. Zapone said smaller utilities may not have the workforce to quickly assess storm damage. Sapone said smaller utilities may not have the workforce to quickly assess storm damage. Some rely on paper maps and highlighters to report and track restoration efforts. This is an area where contractors, with experienced damage assessors and managers, can be an efficient resource to augment or even lead a smaller utility's storm center operations, Sapone said. Contractors and vendors are also developing technology to replace manual damage assessment processes, particularly for smaller municipalities and cooperatives. Number 4, build new lines of communication. Establishing community partnerships between government and incident commanders before a storm is a critical opportunity to set priorities for re-energizing assets. Through meetings with utilities and contractors, government officials can highlight the importance of what might otherwise be a low-visibility location, like a water or sewage treatment plant. By keeping an eye on people who are changing roles, whether at a utility, government agency, or contractor, an opportunity arises to educate new contacts. By understanding the overall storm plan, someone who is otherwise new to his or her position can then effectively contribute when a storm strikes. Building and maintaining these connections before a major outage ultimately means smoother communication because people know one another and their priorities. That helps with faster restoration of services for constituents, Sapone said. Don't let the worst time be the first time. You discuss plans, priorities, and expectations. Expediting restoration ultimately requires the right processes, electronic tools, and trained personnel in place well in advance of a storm, DeBrock says. Bill Perry is a New York-based freelance writer who has covered the utility, manufacturing, and software industries for more than 20 years. Thank you so much for listening to this episode in our In Case You Missed It series. Again, if you're not already following the Line Life podcast, make sure you go to linelife.podbean.com and click follow in the top right, so you're notified when new audio stories and interview-style episodes are available. Also, I invite you to check out T&D World's new podcast called the T&D World Podcast, which focuses on leaders and executives in the electric utility industry. You can check that out at tdworld.com/podcasts. Thank you so much for listening to the Line Life Podcast.
This episode of the Line Life Podcast was written, recorded, and edited by Amy Fishbach. It was produced by Jeff Postlewaite. That's me. To listen to past episodes, visit www.tdworld.com/podcasts or find us at Podbean. You could also drop us a voice memo or message at linelifepodcast@gmail.com with your comments on this episode. We'd love to hear from you. Please follow this show on Podbean or your favorite podcasting app to be updated when new episodes are released. Thank you for listening.